Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Mark Nielsen, an Oscar winner for Toy Story 4, who is the producer of Inside Out 2, Pixar's latest blockbuster hit and hopeful awards contender, certainly, again this year. Mark, I guess just first off, congratulations on the film. When,
Thank you.
talking about Inside Out, obviously was such a beloved film, won an Oscar. Like, where when you come into this, to continue the story, I guess what were the initial kind of thoughts and reasons why to continue it, and how'd you kind of approach it at that initial stage?
Yeah, I have worked on many movies with Pete Docter. Three out of four of his films, I've had the chance to be on those crews. And yeah, I was the associate producer on the first Inside Out. So when Pete and Jonas approached me about being part of this, man, I was thrilled. Inside Out was like one of the highlights of my career. I was so proud of that film and what we were able to do with it and the impact that it had. That was even kind of something we weren't expecting. That when they said we want to do another one and we've got a guy named Kelsey you've never worked with before, but we think you'd be a good match. I had coffee with Kelsey. He pitched me his initial idea that he had for the film, that was about Riley kind of struggling as a teenager and anxiety showing up. And I was like, that's the perfect way to approach this next chapter in her life. Sign me up. I want to be a part of this.
So when you're talking to Kelsey, I guess that's an I was wondering, first time director, what are you, the idea is great. What are you looking for? I guess from a first time, what are you looking for? As tell us that, oh, beyond the idea that this is something that he'll be able to kind of really execute at a high level, I guess.
Yeah, you're looking for someone who really knows how to communicate their vision and can speak from a real place of authenticity and truth, but can really lay that out there. You have to be really vulnerable and really put on the line what you're trying to do to get everybody on board and to kind of get everybody kind of pointed in the same direction. And as soon as I met Kelsey and he kind of told me the story about kind of looking at his old childhood photos of him at his birthday parties and how he went from the smiling 5-year-old to like losing that smile and looking like he wanted to be anywhere else other than his birthday party. I was like, I felt that. I know what you're talking about. And I think that is really going to resonate with audiences. So I could tell right away that he was going to be somebody that the crew was going to be able to respond to, take clear direction from, and be inspired by.
And then, like we said, you worked on the first Inside Out. It's such a big hit. When you're, I guess, I don't know, obviously it is seems like it's such, you don't want to mess up the sequel to Inside Out, right? Because it's
Yeah.
this is such a movie that people really love. So obviously there's got to be some trepidation there. I guess, did you go back, I asked this to Kelsey, but do you go back and look at the first one to with fresh eyes, maybe, or how did you kind of, in terms of what this sequel could be? I guess, how do you go back and what do you take from the first film versus what do you, we really need to just focus on this story in this film, I guess. How do, what's the balance there? How do you kind of do it?
Yeah, there's a balance for sure. I mean, first of all, in the 9 years between the two films, so many people have approached me and approached everybody I know and said, this is a movie we want more of. We love kind of what we learned about sadness and how kind of profound that was on our lives. Can you give us more of this? So I knew right away, and we all did, that this is a movie people were going to want if we could do it well and if we could have something to say, right? You don't want to make a sequel for the sake of making a sequel. You've got to have it has to be surprising. It has to be interesting. It's got to, Joy is our main character. She's got to learn something new that she didn't learn in the first one. You can't just repeat. And a lot of finding that in this film, because we're hard on ourselves, is iteration. We built like 9 full versions of this movie over a 4-year period where we would build it up, watch it. Nope, that's not working.
Hmm.
No one's liking Joy here. This feels like the last movie. Tear it down, rewrite it, build it back up again with storyboards and editorial over and over. Every 4 months, we did that. So that is really how we got it to a place where we felt like we were doing something different enough, new enough, exciting enough, and on a different about something different that wasn't going to feel like a repeat of the first and felt worthy to us to be a sequel. But I know what you're talking about. Toy Story 4, same thing. So
Hmm.
many people had their arms crossed when I tell them I was working on Toy Story 4. They're like, it ended. If 3 ended it, why are you doing this? So we felt so much pressure to be like, do right by Woody, do right by Buzz, and put a movie out into the world that deserved to be there.
I think it's fascinating here. Like you guys are the like I don't even know if I'd call it the luxury, but just doing that with like so diligent about this story, like hammering away the stories. Like when you're like for Inside Out, you're saying like nine different versions, basically. Like that is so great. And I guess like can you like is the version that we saw in theaters, how much different is that than the first one or even the eighth one? Like how much calibrating are you doing? Is it just like because like you get
It's
to really fine tune it, I guess, right? At that point.
Yeah, it's pretty different. We take big swings like every time. Riley was not a hockey player in screening one, Inside Out two. We're like, how about she's not doing that anymore? She gives it up. This is about social pressure. This is about fitting in with the new group. We can do that in high school without hockey. And then we had a note session and where everyone's like, now she feels like every other girl in movies that I've seen about teenagers. Making her a sports girl, making her a hockey girl was what was cool and interesting about her in the first movie. Why would you take that away? And we were like, yeah, why would we take that away? So we brought it back. The emotions that are in it. We had shame in the movie at the beginning, and it was really heavy and not that fun to watch. And we're like, that's not good. We had versions that had nine new emotions coming in, nine new ones, and it was like overwhelming. And we're like, how do you even know what to track? I don't. Joy's the main character. I don't even know what she's feeling right now. You have screen time needed for all these characters, so these are the things you learn by trial and error. So a lot of emotions came out, and we ended with kind of these four new ones that were very specifically supporting this story that was evolving as we went. So yeah, pretty big changes along the way.
That's awesome. I will say my daughter is. I was asking her yesterday because we've seen it before, and I was like, "What would she?" She's like, "Well, I think they're going to do an Inside Out 3 with more emotions. There's so many more." I was like, "I guess I'm sure that is at least like there's always another emotion, right? Because like, but it is interesting to like you said, like to have the focus on these specific emotions. I think for this story makes the most sense. Obviously, yeah, that's really
Yeah,
that's really fun.
yeah.
Do you like
There are
yeah?
so many there. Yeah, sorry, go
No,
ahead.
no, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just gonna say, yeah, there are so many emotions to explore. It really is hard to narrow it down. And like Toy Story, every movie we made, you're adding characters and there's more to track. And it does get tricky because you kind of have to let some go away and some come in. It can be too much for a 90-minute movie. So you really do have to focus on what does this story need.
And also the way you guys handle the characters, I think, is great because every one of the new characters, I feel like, has like a moment or even like, you know what I mean? Like they're all obviously anxiety being like a major one, but even like ennui and stuff, they get like memorable scenes and stuff and sequences where it's like, oh, this is like you're doing right by the characters, I guess, like that you're adding, like they are like there for a reason and they have moments to stand out, which I think is really cool as well, I guess.
Yes.
Do you like with this in terms of the story? I guess that thinking of my daughter too, and I kind of asked this of Kelsey as well. But I was like, Pixar has a way of making movies that obviously like I'm an adult and like they are great. I think these are great movies that I can enjoy on like my own level. But then obviously they're animated movies that you know kids are going to watch of all ages, as young as probably like 5 and 6, like for this or even younger, maybe, right? So I guess like for as someone who is so intimately there at Pixar, like how does like is how do you know like how do you land that plane or like thread that needle or whatever? I just find it fascinating where it's like these movies are so broad appealing and don't like insult any intelligence of any audience member. And I obviously like I watch a lot of kids movies having a child and they are not all like this. So I guess like what is the secret? What is the secret sauce of this? Or like how do you kind of do it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we as filmmakers are trying to make the kind of movies that we would want to see. We're making movies that we like, that we're interested in, that make us sit forward. Things that we think are funny, we put in there. If we laugh at them, they stay. If we don't, they get cut out. But we're always pursuing universal themes. We're always trying to make a movie about something that is relatable just to the experience of being human. So no matter what age you are, you're gonna be able to relate to it. I mean, even this film, right? Riley's 13, so there are a lot of things in there where you go, well, don't you need to be 13 to experience that? But man, even the kids have that coming. Kids that are 6 are like, that's what the teenagers are going through. That's what's ahead of me. And people that are adults are like, oh yeah, I remember that, or oh man, I'm still feeling that right now. So it really is about the subject matter and the story you're telling being something that is something you can emotionally connect with that relates to like what it's like to be alive. Because if you do that, no matter what age you are, it's gonna be something you respond to. But even through the iteration that I was talking about, that we do 9 screenings or whatever, we are always thinking about, is this gonna play all for kids? Is this going to play for, or do we have that dial in the right place? Is this too far over kids' heads? The first Inside Out, we were worried that the concept of it, the kids might not be able to track with it, memory spheres and the memory dump and things disappearing. But we brought kids in. We're like, let's bring in like 50 kids to Pixar. Let's screen it for them and let's do a Q&A with them afterwards to see if they're getting it. And the kids blew our minds because they understood what we were doing almost more than the adults did. And there was like 8-year-olds that would be like, here's what just happened in that movie. Here's the lesson Joy learned along the way. And we're like, right on. So you sometimes have to just literally test it
Wow.
and make sure you're getting to the audience that you want to get to.
Along those lines, I guess the other thing I found fascinating about Inside Out too, and again, like you don't want to, like we were saying, you don't want to repeat yourself. And like the first Inside Out, I found like I was before I was a parent, but I got incredibly emotional, like with Bing Bong and stuff. And I think you bring your own stuff and like the nostalgia of that, and like lost innocence and youth, and you're like, oh man, that really made me cry. And this film it made me cry in different ways, and I found that really interesting too. Where you guys, again, like I think if you think of like what the emotion that you felt watching Inside Out, the emotions you feel watching Inside Out 2 are different, but no less, big and important. And I just found that really interesting too, in terms of like how you guys decided, like, yeah, like, I guess, do you think about it in those terms? Like, oh, well, we had people like you're crying because of this, but maybe in this film you're crying because of something else, I guess. Like, not that maybe I'm like unique here or whatever, but I was like, I found it just, I was like fascinated about for myself, my own reaction to her is like, oh,
Yeah.
like it is a different kind of emotional response, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think part of it is just the emotions that we're exploring in this film. That feeling of I'm not good enough, man, that was in Kelsey's pitch from the beginning. He's like, I felt that way when I was 13. I walked around thinking everybody that I was not valuable and that I didn't know if I even deserved to be here. And that's such a relatable feeling, but it is a very different emotion than what we were exploring in the first one, where Riley's like had to move away from her friends and is wanting to run away from home. It's a different kind of thing. And so I think just the nature of the emotion of anxiety that we were exploring and how to really get to the real truth of what it feels like, with the hope that we're going to tell kids and families like, you're not alone. Because we all felt that way. We all feel that way sometimes now, but you're not alone. You're not alone in feeling that way, because often you do feel when you're going through that, like I suck and I don't, there's something wrong with me. But to help to understand that other people are struggling with that same thing really can kind of make you feel a little better about what you're going through and maybe be able to talk about it a little bit
Mhm.
more with other people.
So you mentioned, like, obviously, like we're talking like this is the biggest it was the biggest Pixar movie ever, right, at the box office. So the biggest animated movie ever too. Is that right?
Yeah,
And
that's right. That's
it's
right.
just it was a crazy, a huge success, obviously, like worldwide. So I guess, like, I don't know, like, and like you're saying, like it is such universal themes as well. When you got to that ninth screening, I guess did the maybe yes, because of how much of a success. But like, were you surprised, or like did you know the movie would, like, how, like, were you surprised by how widely it was embraced and how broadly it was beloved? Like, people love this movie, have seen it over and over again, like kind of like really responded exactly well to it. So I guess, like, how, like, was that a
Yeah,
surprise, I guess?
it's a great question. I will say I don't think no, I don't think we expected it to be as successful as it was, because again it broke records and you don't expect to break all the records. We knew we were onto something in terms of its emotional connection because we were screening it for people on smaller audiences, audience previews, and people were like really being impacted by it. We knew, like, we were scoring the movie, sitting in Andrea's scoring session, and like we were crying watching the score happen. Even though we've seen the scene 50 times. So we're like, I know we're onto something, and we knew we were feeling good about it. But man, you don't know. Were people going to come back to theaters and see it? Right? There's been a lot of concerns about like, are people going to come back for this? Are they going to show up or are they just going to wait and watch it on Disney Plus? We needed people to come to, we wanted people to come to the theaters. And so to the degree at which they did that worldwide, blew us away, gave us tremendous amount of hope and optimism about animation, about the future, about the future of box office, the future of our studio and animation in general. It felt just like a win for the industry, just to see that people, if they really connect with a film, they will go out and see it, and they'll see it, like you said, even multiple times. So we're blown away by the response, far beyond our expectations. But man, it just made us really proud of what we were able to do.
Yeah, I think, and definitely it should be. I guess like to close. I mean, like, have you already? Do you think about Inside Out 3? I mean, like, or like, is that like not even shouldn't even mention it? Like, what do you like? Obviously, like you said, like the first one. This is, I guess, 9 years, right? It took, between
Yeah.
the versions, and I also think it could be like a yeah. I thought of this because like Maya Hawke and obviously Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke in the before movies, but I was like, you could do this a kind of again, like, keep doing like maybe 10 years from now is Riley, you're 23 and you're doing Inside Out 3 or something like that. I don't know, but like, have you guys thought
Man,
about any of this?
yeah, you're right. I mean, the possibilities are endless, right? We all have emotions. You can go into different heads. Riley can be different ages. There's so much in this world. There's so many emotions that haven't been explored yet. So, we take these one at a time. We really do. So our full focus has just been on two. There's been no thought put into three right now, but we're just enjoying the success and getting to talk to people about two because it's still kind of just our latest thing that we've done. But man, it seems like there could be a bright future. I do. We love this world. We love these characters. But even though there's nothing in the works right now, you never know what the
Yeah.
future holds.
It is a great world, and this is such a great film, Inside Out. To Mark Nielsen, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Great talking with you.